Aleister Crowley is primarily known for his views on the occult. In fact, Aleister Crowley may be the most famous occultist who has ever lived. And yet there is more to Aleister Crowley than simply his views on the occult. In this video, I'm going to cover 5 key insights Crowley had into the human condition that may surprise you and help you live your life differently. But before I do, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. This will boost the video in the algorithm, and it will ensure that you are notified the next time I post a new video. Also, please consider supporting me on Patreon. I will leave a link to my Patreon in the description of this video. Let's get started. The first insight of Crowley's I want to talk about is his understanding of the human being as dynamically changing over time. Crowley understood the universe as resulting from the interaction of 2 complementary principles. There is the principle of being, or possibility, which is called nuit, and there is the principle of actuality and change, which is called hadit. Every interaction between nuit and hadit gives rise to a change in the appearance of the universe, and this dynamic interaction between nuit and hadit is taking place in the core of each of our beings as we speak. Hadit is that force within you pushing you into contact with the next moment, and the next moment, and the next moment. This means that in order to understand ourselves as individuals, it means that we have to understand ourselves as a process of change. One's true being is not a static thing. Rather, it is an ongoing and unfolding process of transformation. To come to a deep understanding of oneself is identical with coming to a mastery of one's development or growth. This leads us to Crowley's second major insight, which is the importance of adaptation. Each moment is a fresh opportunity to establish deep contact with reality. We can respond to the present moment in a way which is authentic and true to ourselves, or we can respond in a way which is rigid, scripted, and false. In other words, we have the chance to open ourselves and make ourselves vulnerable to what is unpredictable and new and energetic, or we can attempt to wall ourselves off from it. This is a deep insight on Crowley's part, and it aligns in some ways with later psychological research on what are called flow states. Flow is also known as being in the zone. It is the mental state of a person engaged in an activity that they are fully immersed in. There is a feeling of energized focus and full involvement in the activity that is taking place. The sorts of activities that allow us to enter into flow states are really important clues to what our true will is. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about your will, you may be interested in will discovery. Will discovery is a process in which I work one-on-one with you for 4 hours, and we go through the most formative experiences of your life. While you share your stories with me, I look for the patterns in all of those stories that have eluded your grasp up until now. Together, you and I use these patterns to come up with a will statement, an expression of a few words which expresses what your true will is. In his essay, Duty, Crowley says that it is the duty of every individual to discover what their true will is and to put it into a sentence using simple words. The purpose of will discovery is to accomplish just that. If will discovery sounds interesting to you, click the link in the description of this video to see my availability. Now, those who have completely opened their hearts so that they are greeting each fresh new moment from a place of spontaneity and defenseless authenticity, Crowley calls these people saints. Saints have completely opened themselves and made themselves radically vulnerable to life. This is symbolized by having emptied all of their blood into the cup of the goddess Babylon. And this leads to the third insight Crowley had, which was the discovery, or maybe the rediscovery, of a non-renunciate spiritual path. Some spiritual philosophies posit that we can only achieve enlightenment or union with God if we renounce existence. So think of Catholic priests who renounce possessions or sexuality. The same goes for Buddhist monks. Or think of the hermit going off to meditate forever in a cave on a mountain or in the desert to achieve enlightenment. The idea behind these spiritual philosophies is that our liberation depends upon having distance from the material world, and especially having distance from our desires. What Crowley found instead was a spiritual path that takes us deeper into our bodies, deeper into our desires, and deeper into reality. While the renunciate path requires us to unequivocally reject desire, the non-renunciate thalamic path requires one to affirm every occurrence. It is this ability to say yes to every change, every occurrence, which constitutes the life of the saint. This path is just as demanding, if not more demanding, than the renunciate path, because it requires one to cultivate the ability to find every single experience, every single thing sacred. So even though this path goes in the opposite direction of the renunciate path, the stakes are just as high, if not higher. The fourth insight Crowley had was into the importance of meditation. We take meditation for granted today, but back in Crowley's time, he was one of the first people to really take meditation seriously and to take the practice of meditation seriously enough to do it. Crowley's writings on meditation are derivative of Vivekananda and some of the Buddhist suttas that he had access to at the time. There are definitely better instructional manuals on meditation that have been written since Crowley's time. But for his time, Crowley was a pioneer and a maverick. He didn't just take an intellectual interest in meditation, he practiced it himself and he made it part of his curriculum that he gave to his students. As it turns out, this was quite prescient on Crowley's part. Since Crowley's life, there has been a great deal of interest in meditation, both amongst practitioners and among scientists, and there is new information being discovered about it every day. The fifth insight Crowley had was into the interdisciplinary nature of spiritual practices. In his magical teaching order, the AA, Crowley required all of his students to master a diverse ecology of spiritual practices. They were required to learn ceremonial magic, as it had been developed since the Renaissance and had been taught to Crowley through the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. They also had to master the 8 limbs of yoga, and they had to master various forms of self-awareness and self-control. Crowley also required his students to study the world's religions and their philosophies and theologies. This kind of interdisciplinary approach is common today, but it was less common in Crowley's time. What we know now is that the way that the mind relates to itself and couples with reality is highly complex. This means that if we want to bring about profound transformations in ourselves, this usually requires not one intervention, but multiple interventions from multiple angles. It's common now to combine meditation, visualization, reflection, journaling, self-reflection, physical exercise, and even changes of diet to bring about profound changes. The idea is that because we are complex individuals and because we tend to go back to homeostasis, we need lots of different interventions in order to move the needle. Crowley was an early pioneer of this approach. He combined what he understood of Western and Eastern mysticism with philosophy and the psychology of his day. This is yet another way in which Crowley was ahead of his time. Aleister Crowley is far and away most famous for his contributions to occultism, and I suspect it will remain that way, but he also deserves credit for key insights into the nature of the human being and the nature of the mind. He also deserves credit for being an early pioneer in the use of esoteric spiritual exercises to transform and elevate consciousness. Has this video sparked your curiosity? Did you learn anything surprising in it? Let me know down in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. And if you enjoyed this video, there's a really good chance you will enjoy this other video as well. Until next time, love is the law, love under will.